Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks to Emma, she pointed out that I had missed a chunk of my lecture, and I thought I should record that and get that online because people will be surprised to be missing that little bit. So this is the introduction to the data reporting lecture number 3, complex queries and reporting. And I forgot to give you the context, which is how this thing starts. So sorry to that. Sorry to Emma, to the people who found that, and onward. So what's the purpose of this lecture? It's to get you better at querying, to sort of talk about the difference between reports and queries. So you got your tables, you got your reports, you got your queries, and how do they all fit together? To get a little better at making reports and access, and talk about exporting data. So why don't we just report from tables? I'm always talking about that in class, and well, this data is in the table. Why don't we just use the data that's in the table? But because the table has got 29,000 rows and 50 columns, nobody's going to get any value from that. It's just kind of a bit weird to have to give somebody all that data. So and if we only wanted tables, spreadsheets do that. They've also got rows and columns. The thing that Access it's got this layers of queries. You can put layers of query on top of your tables, and queries and reports. They take the table and they use it for a new purpose. It's not just this data storage anymore, but it's this data storage with plus kind of thing. And then now queries and reports are common, have things in common. They both get data from the database. They can also access tables and or queries, so they can get you can have a report that's directly on a query. You can have directly on a table. You can have a query that's directly on a table, and then they're used to take the data to other places and systems. It's you sit down with your morning coffee and have a report, read your report. Oh, how much money do we make this week? But they change the format. They total things. So you can query, you can count the number of lines that do something. In a report, you make things look different, and you group and sort. But that's the difference. Is that reports change the shape of the data and the look of the data, whereas queries are more for changing the functionality. We'll have sort of try to show you that in a little bit. So the shape of a query, this is what a query looks like. It's square. It looks just like a table. It's got rows and columns. It's a block of data. So it looks just like a table. It sort of functions just like a table. And a report, the same data, it looks much different. It's got headers. It's for visual. It's for a human being to appreciate. Whereas queries are more for computers to appreciate. So computers are queries are for computers. Square and the output data for a query is homogeneous, the same type of thing. Every column has the same type of thing. Follows the same constraints as a table. A table, every column has to be the same type of thing. You don't have some totals at the bottom like you do in an Excel spreadsheet. Every column is the same type of thing. But a report, you can have totals at the bottom. It's heterogeneous. Let's go back to our table. This column here, the both sexes column, has got a few different things in it. It's got a total. It's got numbers that mean different things. It's got a percentage. There's different types of things in that column. A query would never have that. A query just has raw data in it. Yeah, and the other thing, let's just zoom out a bit so you can see all that. So in we missed something on the last page too. Then, gee. Been going through the whole thing and missing bits. So and also the output from a query is only the input data, whereas a report can add in things. You have the input data, you got page numbers, dates, descriptive text, all this other stuff jammed in there for the human being to read. That's why it's reports for people. And whereas queries just look the standard set of data. They both get data from the database and do stuff to it. And the other thing about queries is you can have queries on a query. You can take a query that does something, for example, selects a subset of rows and columns. You need to do that for your assignment. And then your next query is based on that subset. And you use multiple queries when you want to make it simplified. Like sometimes it's just too complicated to put it in one query. In the tutorial, that's the thing. You can't actually have all those ors at the same time as those ands. It's just a mess, you know. And so when you have a large number of criteria, you want to say, and it's sort of like when you think about it logically. Oh, this query selects out the inguinal hernia. This query selects out the inguinal hernia that has a complication. Yeah, when multiple complex, and also when you want to join the queries together, when you want to use the query to filter another query. So here's an example, like from the assignment, from the tutorial, like K40 star gives you the inguinal hernias, and then you the second query, when you want to count the inguinal hernias, the second query is based on that query. So we join that up to the first query, we join the diagnosis table up to the first query, and then we count based on that. And that's it for this section of the lecture.